Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today we're going to be making a card for our Cards for Men series using this Kanban sheets that make this great tunnel card. So the first thing we're going to do is cut out all the elements. I'm going to use a craft knife to do that, just to make sure that none of the pieces rip where they've got the little notches to hold them in place. And then we're going to create the sides for our tunnel cards. So the first bit is to fold the two wings over and into each other, making sure that it lines up perfectly on the inside there as you fold it up, so everything is nice and straight. I'm just using my bone folder there, and then I'm concertina folding the rest of those side pieces. There are score lines in there, but if you're doing this from scratch, then just create your own score lines, and then do the same on the opposite side. And then I'm just sharpening those creases with my bone folder, and there is the front and sides of our tunnel card. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm adding pieces of the red tape to the back parts of the fold of the concertina on each side, and then the layers that I've got that I popped out, I'm putting the red tape to the very edges of those on the front. Now the reason I'm doing it on the pieces themselves here is because, as you can see, some are full depth but some are only partially a lot going to be taking up those concertina sides. So rather than trying to work it out, it's much simpler just to put the tape onto the elements themselves. So put that all on and then lift the tape off. Now red tape is a bit of a pain to grab off, so just use your craft knife and carefully peel it back. Then, having worked out exactly which element goes in what part of the crease, I am starting to put my concertina pieces in. Sorry, this one is not the best view for you, but basically I've put it in one side and then I'm repeating the process on the other side, and as you can see there, that is the first layer popped in. Now you want to work from the front and then towards the back, because otherwise you can't put them in so easily, obviously, because you've got a front piece there. So that's the next layer in. And obviously the other thing you want to make sure, which I did make a mistake initially, was to put it up the right way. I actually popped that up at the top and had to pull it out and redo it. And then with this one there's a piece at the top now, so I'm just checking which way up it goes with the picture just to make sure, and then just popping that in. Now you could put that in the same layer if you wanted to, but I've actually done it in the next layer just to create even more dimension and depth to my card. And you can see here a little bit easier how you do the second side, and you'll see it kind of pulls it a bit tight, but that's fine, it's not going to be a problem. You kind of want it to be like that, it gives it a really nice effect. And then finally to our back piece, and for that I did put the red tape onto the actual pieces themselves, the side pieces, but again I don't think it would actually matter. And then taking the piece itself, again make sure it's the right way up, and then put it to one side first. You want to make sure that the edge of your piece of card lines up with the outside edge of your concertina piece, so that there's no cards sort of sticking out, that it works perfectly. The harder pieces, this other side, is lining it up is a little bit more fiddly. You might want to put some wet glue on top of your red tape if you want, just to try and help make that a bit easier and give you some wriggle room. And there is the initial piece all finished, so you could leave it like that. However, this particular collection came with some decoupage pieces as well, so we punched those all out and I'm popping those on. Now you could have put those on the layers prior to putting the actual tunnel card together. You can see here I'm fiddling a little bit to pop this inside. However, it could be, you see, that like the beer there, that some of that could have gone on the outside, and until I sort of had the card in front of me I wasn't sure how I wanted it to be, so I thought best thing was to leave it as it was and just put put it together as I went along. And again, these next layers, again, you could have thought, well, put those together prior to putting that first layer down, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to do that. You could see that that piece could have sat on the outside potentially. Now on this one I am sitting it on the outside, so I'm using a little piece of red tape on the base of the glass and then some foam, double thickness, on the top of the glass, just to make sure it's sat nicely and you've got it not dipping too far away at the glass part. Now this piece is actually inside, and I probably could have done that one prior to putting it together, to be honest, but anyway, we managed to get it in fine. And then the tops of the pumps for the beer. It's just the little details, and I think it looks really effective. And then we've got here the dominoes. Now for this one I did, as you see, I did pop that out. Now you might not have thought that if you'd have put it together prior to it, you know, the decoupage together prior to the card. So I think it is better to do it this way around, because you could have had the bottle outside of the frame as well, so it really was kind of choice. And even those cards could have popped over the edge. You could have just used a little bit more thickness of foam and it would have worked great. So there are all my layers done, and I think that looks absolutely fab. I'm really pleased with that. So then on the back of the card I wanted to cover that, so I used a piece of Stampin' Up! Old Olive, which went beautifully with the colours in that card, and I just popped that over the back. Obviously I measured it beforehand to make sure it cut to size. And then this piece was actually the sentiment piece that popped out of the aperture on the front of the card. That was there, and so I thought, well, let's make use of that. So I popped that on the back, and I thought that just looked really nice, and it just finishes it off. And I mean, you could have left it white, but I think it looks nicer to finish it off that way. Then I wanted to add the word Dad to the front of the card, so I used the X-cut die there, and I cut out those from my old olive cardstock. There was a little piece left over, so I just did that. And then I'm just taking my Cosmic Shimmer glue, and I'm positioning those kind of roughly at this point because I'm not quite sure how it's going to sit. So I used the wet glue because it allowed a lot of movement, and I think it turned out really nice in the end, so I was pleased with that. And just to say as well, the card completely flattens. I mean, especially if you hadn't added the decoupage, it would go completely flat, but I actually put this in a perfectly normal sized envelope. I think it was about 1/2 inch bigger than the actual card itself, so this was, say, a 5-inch square card, and I used a 5.5-inch square envelope, but that was really for the decoupage. So if you hadn't have added the decoupage, you could have probably put it in its same size envelope. But anyway, there is the card finished. I hope you've enjoyed making this with me. I hope you like the card. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!